Hey guys, and welcome to our channel. We're fortunate to live in a car-crazy part of the country where we enjoy good weather all year long. We do go to a lot of car shows to find rarely seen vehicles with great stories that we know our viewers will love. When we spotted this awesome 66 Chevrolet van and started talking to its friendly and longtime owner, we knew this was a feature we had to do. Do you remember when vans like this were everywhere? Businesses and utility companies used them, plus they were great family haulers and were used on weekends to go camping. In the 70s, vanning, as it was called, was very popular, so these cool haulers had a second chance at life by being customized and used by van enthusiasts. We're starting to see a resurgence in these vintage vans, and they really bring back fond memories and lots of smiles from both the owners and spectators. Now, let's go for a ride.
Cruise is really nice between 40, 45, 50. And being over the top of the axles and stuff, you can really feel everything, the tires, all the bumps in the road.
My name's Brad Notestone. I'm from Glendale, Arizona. I'm originally from Zanesville, Ohio. And my vehicle that I own and drive, I've called her Betsy since I've had her, is a 1966 G10 Chevrolet van. I moved to Phoenix in 1982, and my van was still back with my dad back in Ohio. And back in Ohio, my dad had put in a automatic transmission, so probably in '84, I think I drove it back out here. I sold it in 2001, and I bought it back in 2015, 14 years later. And that story was that I watched Chip Foose had a segment on a A100 van that they were overhauling, and I told my wife, I said, well, I wonder whatever happened to my van. So that was probably the wrong thing to say. She goes, well, why don't you see if you can find it? So, the gears meshed. So I started thinking, okay. So the story is, how I found it was, the guy that I sold it to, guy's name's Mike Jenkins, and he was a Navajo artist that made Kachina dolls for the Herd Museum. I'd always kept his name and his address and his number. It was on a little envelope that I had in my garage that I kept under my stereo on the shelf, and it had stayed there for 14 years. So I drug it out, still had his number on it. So I called that number. After a couple weeks, I get a phone call. It's Mike. And so I got talking with Mike. I said, hey Mike, you still have the van? He said, no, Brad. He said, I got in a real bad divorce. He said, had to sell the van. So he sold it to another Navajo artist, and his name was Dave Montour. And it took me probably a couple 2 or 3 weeks to get a hold of him, and finally got a hold of Dave. And Dave told me, he says, well, he said, I ran into some hard times, so I had to sell the van. So I'm thinking, oh man, where's this leading me to? Well, he said, I sold it to my brother. And I said, well, you think your brother still has it? He goes, I think he still does. So he says, let me get a hold of my brother and see if he still got it. So he did finally get a hold of his brother, and he'd said that he'd given the van to his son. It was for a graduation present. So I asked him, I said, well, do you think Brandon would be interested in selling the van back? Well, let me find out. And he says, we'll see. About a week later, Dave called me and said, "Hey, Brad," he said, "they'll sell you the van back." Basically, the van was the same that it was when I left my garage. It was just missing a lot of stuff off of it, but in fairly good shape. Not bad shape at all. A real good friend of mine named Hugh Dunlap. He's got a car hauler. So I asked Huey. I said, "Hey," I said, "you want to go up to Flagstaff and go get my van back?" "Sure, Brad, let's go get it." So went up and went out and got it, and it was way out in the middle of nowhere. But I can always remember when I came into the property, I could see just a little red box out there, and that's got to be the van. And when I got up there, that was it. And real happy to see it. I'm a spiritual kind of guy, you know. I always thought everything's got a spirit to it, and she was just waiting for me to, to rescue her. Started looking for people to do the paint and body on it, and found a gentleman by the name of Greg Fleetwood, with Bone Scraper Customs. Meekum had an auction, and they had a Corvette going through there, and it was Mosport green with a leather interior. And I thought, man, what a pretty color. So that was the color. You know, I just knew it right then and there. That's going to be the color for the van. So it's Mosport green with a, I call it a pewter on the bottom. So that was the color scheme on it. And then originally the van had American 200S wheels and tires on it. Finally tracked down these new set of 200S's, got those on there. And it's basically pretty much stock. Those vans, their gauge cluster was, they were out of Corvair. So I went to Dakota Digital and dropped a Dakota Digital gauge cluster in it. The engine is pretty much stock. It's bored 60 over, so she's at the highest that she can be bored out without having trouble. And put a split exhaust on it, split header, dual exhaust, and we put a 350 behind it, automatic transmission. And the sunroof that's been in there, I cut that in there in '78, and it's been in there ever since, never leaked. So I'm real happy with it. It's got all new glass in it, all new rubber. I had Dunbar do the Dunbar here in Phoenix. They did the springs on it. Replaced all the bushings. One other thing that I did put in, I put a B&M shifter in it. The emblems on the bottom, they're off of 60. I do believe it's the 62 Novas, and they came with an inline 6 because usually when I start this up, everybody's, from the sound of it, "Hey, what do you got in that thing?" It's just an inline 6. "No, you don't have that." I said, "Yeah." I pull up the dog box cover and let them take a look in there, and he's not lying. It's a 6. The interior is the seats. They were out of a Fiero, and the upholstery on those that did it was Frank's Upholstery out in Glendale. Box stock inside. I just left it, just the way they came from the factory with the ribs. The flooring, that's a Home Depot special. I just did the fat mat on the bottom, and then the plywood on the bottom after that, and then I did the luxury vinyl planking. So I cut that all out and did that myself. And basically, that's pretty much the van. It's been a good old girl to me. My wife, Carol, she's been very, very supportive in me. She loves the van just as much as we do. She loves riding in it. And just next thing I think is probably in the future for the van is probably a set of disc brakes on the front end. I'm a member of the Vintage Chevy Van Club, and one good thing about it's a brotherhood of vanners around the world. I got to give good credit to my best friend. He's like a brother to me, Jeff Neiswanger. He's back in Zanesville. He's the one that really originally helped me rebuild the van when I first bought it. He helped me with the engine, did the wiring, did the gauges on it. I have to give credit to Pat Pickerel. He was the guy that did the paint and body on it, and just another another real good friend that's like a brother to me, and he helped me out doing the red paint job on it. It's been a good journey. I had a regret when I sold the van. I had tears in my eyes when it left. And the one thing I can really say is it's one of those things people have regrets, and it's one of the regrets that I got back. And I'm just so lucky that that the Lord gave it to me. I had a chance to get it back, and and then when I got it back, I had the friends that would help me put it back on the road. So I'm just real grateful for that. Grateful for everybody that helped me. A guy named Milton Daughtery, known him for years, a real good friend of mine. He did a lot of the wiring on it, and helped me get the engine started on the very first start out. It was Milton was there with me, and basically Huey, the guy that brought it down, he was there with me. His son was there. Just all of our buddies that had something to do with the van. And I can remember starting it up for the first time, and boy, it's just when you get that van started for the first time after it's set for so long, it's something special. That's the 66 in a nutshell.
See, we told you guys this van was awesome. What do you think? Any special memories of a vintage van from back in the day? Please keep it clean. This is a family-oriented channel. We'll see you again next Sunday as we bring you a fantastic example of a highly desirable mid-60s Corvette. Not just any Corvette, but a 427 4-speed roadster that's had the same owner for decades. Don't miss it. Until next week, remember, please be careful out there.